Hey guys, it's Michelle back with more Q posts. Actually, I've covered the ones from today except for three of them, and those are the three that we're going to go over. I think there's three, there could possibly be four. But that's what we're going to start with. I'm going to pick up from where I left off in the last video, and we're going to cover these. There's some interesting things here, so let's get started. All right, so this Anon posts Trump's tweet. I'm sorry. Oh my gosh. I don't know where that came from. I had all this energy and then all of a sudden it just like attacked my face. All right. So this Anon posts this tweet by Trump and it says Russia and China are playing the currency devaluation game as the U.S. keeps raising interest rates. Not acceptable. And that was tweeted this morning, 8:31 a.m. by President Donald Trump. And then this Anon, he posts that, and then she says, anyone think this tweet has to do with Q's post/pics of the where and the why? Also, is 5 fine eyes? Now, he means 5 eyes because we were just discussing that. And remember the pictures of the where and the why, they were in China and of the stock market, and I don't think we've got an answer. Oh my gosh, we've got an answer to the where, but we don't have an answer to the why. So at least not one that satisfies me. You may feel differently. And I also wanted to mention that you guys that corrected me and said it's not the sitting room, it's the situation room. I had to laugh at myself, really. I really had to laugh at myself because I thought, of course it's the situation room. Why would I possibly think it was the sitting room? I don't know. Honestly, sometimes I worry about myself a little. No, really, I do. But anyway, that's what all you guys are for. And you guys are great about setting me straight. So I appreciate that. Now, so Q, this Anon is asking, do you think this has to do with Q's posts? And also is 5 eyes. And Q responds and says, not a coincidence. 25/100% Q. Now, I'm not going to pretend that I know what this means because I have not been following the whole currency devaluation and all this. I should be. I do follow the stock market, but I haven't been following that. I really need to tell you the truth. Shame on me. Shame on me. So let's go up to the next one. And this Anon says, Q. Okay, I'm going to yawn to myself to death. It's not normal. Q. So we have iris scanners for phones. When do we prick our finger and drop blood on the home button to confirm our ID? See where this is going? So Q responds and says, 23andMe. Anne Wojcicki, I'm not sure exactly how her name is pronounced, and I should have gone out into, there's a little app that you can get that tells you how things are pronounced when you put into it, but I neglected to do that. So, and then Q says spouse. Well, her spouse is Sergey Brin, co-founder of Google. Why is this relevant? Well, it's very relevant, extremely relevant. So let's go take a look. And I found this in Scientific America, and I thought it was very, very well done and kind of puts it into perspective for us. 23andMe is terrifying, but not for the reasons the FDA thinks. The genetic testing company's real goal is to hoard your personal data. Wait, is anybody surprised? No, wait, seriously. Anybody? No, raise your hand. I didn't think so. Okay. Personalized medicine in the genome area. So this is just, I guess this is Anyway, I don't know. Essay Forum is an invited essay from experts on topical issues in science and technology. If there's a gene for hubris, the 23andMe crew has certainly got it. Last Friday, the U.S. Food and Drug Administration, FDA, ordered the genetic testing company immediately to stop selling its flagship product, its $99 personal genome service kit. In response, the company cooed that its relationship with the FDA is extremely important to us and continued hawking its wares as if nothing had happened. Although the agency is right to sound a warning about 23andMe, it's doing so for the wrong reasons. Since late 2007, 23andMe has been known for offering cut-rate genetic testing. Spit in a vial, send it in, and the company will look at thousands of regions in your DNA that are known to vary from human to human and which are responsible for some of our traits. For example, a site in your genome named RS4481887 can come in 3 varieties. If you happen to have what is known as the GG variant, there's a good possibility that you are unable to smell asparagus in your urine, and that's important, isn't it? Those blessed with the GA or AG varieties are much more likely to be repulsed by their own pee after having a few spears of Spargelfest. Well, I'll tell you one thing. The first time I ate it, I must be of the GA or the AG variety, because the first time I had asparagus, I was like, oh my gosh, did that come from me? I have birthed Satan. Anyway. At first, 23andMe seemed to angle its kit as a fun way to learn a little genetics, using yourself as a test subject. Our goal is to connect you to the 23 paired volumes of your own genetic blueprint, bringing your personal insight into ancestry, genealogy, and inherited traits. Read the company's website. The FDA had little problem with the company telling you why you had dry earwax, okay, RS17822931, or whether you're likely to sneeze when you look at a bright light, RS10427255. These are very, very, they're questions that I've pondered. That phase didn't last for long because there is much more interesting stuff in your genome than novelty items. Certain regions signal an increased risk of breast cancer, the impending onset of metabolic diseases, and sensitivity to medication. 23andMe, as well as a number of other companies, edge closer and closer to marketing their service as a way of predicting and even preventing health problems, and any kit intended to cure, mitigate, treat, prevent, or diagnose a disease is, according to federal law, a medical device that needs to be deemed safe and effective by the FDA. Since mid-2009, 23andMe has been negotiating with the agency, and in July 2012, the company finally began the process of getting clearance from the FDA to sell the kit that it had already been selling for 5 years. And everything seemed rosy until, in what a veteran Forbes reporter calls the single dumbest regulatory strategy he had seen in 13 years of covering the Food and Drug Administration, 23andMe changed its strategy. It apparently blew through its FDA deadlines, effectively annulling the clearance process, and abruptly cut off contact with the agency in May. Adding insult to injury, the company started an aggressive advertising campaign. Know more about your health, leaving little doubt about the underlying medical purpose of 23andMe's personal genome service. This left the agency with little alternative but to take action. As part of our interactions with you, including more than 14 face-to-face teleconference meetings, hundreds of email exchanges, and dozens of written communications, the agency complains we provided you with statistical advice and discussed potential risk mitigation strategies. It is the tone of a spurned spouse, exasperated and angry. 23andMe is putting no effort into salvaging their relationship. But, and here's the but, the FDA frets about the accuracy of 23andMe's tests. It is missing their true function, and consequently, the agency has no clue about the real dangers they pose. Oh, I think they do. The personal genome service isn't primarily intended to be a medical device. It is a mechanism meant to be a front end for a massive information gathering operation against an unwitting public. Boy, where have we heard this before? Wait. Where have I heard that recently? Oh, yes. Zuckerberg. Sound paranoid? Consider the case of Google. Now remember that she, the head of this, is married to the co-founder of Google. One of the founders of 23andMe, and whatever her last name is presently married to Sergey Brin, the founder of Google. When it first launched, Google billed itself as a faithful servant of the consumer, a company devoted only to building the best tool to help us satisfy our cravings for information on the web. And Google's search engine did just that. But as we know now, the fundamental purpose of the company wasn't to help us search, but to hoard information. Every search query entered into its computers is stored indefinitely. Joined with information gleaned from cookies, that sounds delicious, doesn't it? That Google plants in our browsers, along with personally identifiable data that dribbles from our computer hardware. Really? Dribbles? Wow. And from our networks, and with the amazing volumes of information, and we always seem willing to share with perfect strangers, even corporate ones. That data store has become Google's real asset by parceling out that information to help advertisers target you with or without your consent. Google makes more than 10 billion every quarter. What the search engine is to Google, the personal genome service is to 23andMe. The company is not exactly hiding its ambitions. The long game here is not to make money selling kits, although the kits are essential to get the base level data. Patrick Chung, a 23andMe board member, told Fast Company last month, once you have the data, the company does actually become the Google of personalized healthcare. The company has lowered the price of the kit again and again, most recently from $299 to a mere $99, practically making it a stocking stuffer. Okay. All the better to induce volunteers to give 23andMe the data it so desperately wants. Currently, the database contains the genetic information of some 500,000 people, a number, reportedly wants to double by year end. So what does 23andMe want to do with all that data? Right now, the talk is all about medical research. Well, of course, it's all about medical research. Why would we think anything different? And in fact, the company is doing some interesting work. It has been sifting through its genomic database, which is combined with the information that volunteers submit about themselves. Volunteers, okay. To find possible genetic links to people's traits. The bright light sneeze genetic tag is a 23andMe discovery, and what an important discovery it is. I don't think I could have ever slept until I found out what part of my gene makes me sneeze when I see bright lights. Actually, I don't sneeze when I see bright lights, but maybe there are some that do. And now they know exactly what part of their gene does that, their genome. Okay, so although 23andMe admits that it will share aggregate information about users' genomes to third parties, it adamantly insists that it will not sell your personal genetic information without your explicit consent. Where have we heard that before? Without our consent, right? Sure. And you've heard that Zuckerberg's wife is wanting to develop something whereby Facebook will match up organ donors. Now that sounds like a good idea. I mean, if I didn't know the things that I'd know, and if I hadn't lived, and seen things go terribly wrong, I would think, well, that's a good idea, because a lot of people die waiting for organ transplants, and there may be somebody that is willing to donate a kidney or whatever. But where are they going to get all this information? Well, I mean, if they're collecting all this data on our DNA, they're going to know. And Facebook is going to know because they all share data. And, I can see this turning very bad because, okay, you go, you want health insurance. They're going to know everything about your genome when you apply, right? I can just see this going very badly. What if you have the gene for breast cancer, and there is one? I know we do the testing here in Canada. I'm sure they do it in the States. And what if you're diagnosed that you have that gene, which doesn't necessarily mean you'll get it, but it really, really significantly ups it. And so you go to apply for a job, and they're thinking, this woman, she might cost us money because she's got, the marker for breast cancer. Or what if you've got the marker, I don't know if there is one, I assume that there is, for dementia or Alzheimer's, and you're older and you're applying for a job. Well, don't you think that they're going to, hire somebody that doesn't have those markers? See, I can just see this being used against us because it always is used against us, always. And I don't want my genome out there. I'm sure you don't either. I'm fine with my doctor having it. They have to sign, very strict HIPAA laws and so forth. But anyway, I'm sure you see where I'm going with this, and I'm sure you're thinking, yeah, this is not a good idea. Because look at how Facebook handled our data. We've heard that one before. Back when Google was first launched, the founders insisted that the company would never sell you out to advertisers. No, never. The company admitted that it would share aggregate information about users' behavior with anyone who ponied up enough money, but the company's privacy policy promised that individuality, identifiable information about you, is not willfully disclosed to any third party without first receiving your permission. A decade and a half later, after countless minuscule frog in boiling water changes, Google's privacy policy is craftily worded, diluting the word consent so that it's implicit in most cases. There are a few exceptions. The company has graciously agreed not to reveal that you are a homosexual or that you have a heart disease unless you explicitly opt in, but in matters not related to your medical conditions, race, ethnicity, sexuality, or your political or religious beliefs, there is no such guarantee. Not that your consent really matters, implicit or explicit. Google has repeatedly proven that it is more than willing to break its promises and ignore its own privacy rules when it suits them. And, even now, if you apply for a job, they're very likely to go through your social, history. And that might be fine, but I'm sure we've all got things on our Facebook, or we're connected to things, or we're, whatever. Our friends are posting weird stuff, whatever. And how much worse is it going to be if our genome, all our DNA stuff's out there? They know everything. No, thank you. So anyway, those of us who have not volunteered to be part of the grand experiment have even less protection. Even if 23andMe keeps your genome confidential against hackers, corporate takeovers, and the temptation of filthy lucre forever and ever, there is plenty of evidence that there is no such thing as an anonymous genome anymore. It is possible to use the internet to identify the owner of a snippet of genetic information, and it is getting easier day by day. This becomes a particularly acute problem once you realize that every one of your relatives who spits in a 23andMe vial is giving the company a not considerable bit of your own genetic information to the company along with their own. If you have several close relatives who are already in the 23andMe database, the company already essentially has all it needs to know about you. It is doubtful that 23andMe would be able to protect that information even if it were so inclined, and we know it's not so inclined. So while the FDA concentrates on the question of whether 23andMe's kit is a safe and effective medical device, it is failing to address the real issue: what 23andMe should be allowed to do with the data it collects. For 23andMe's personal genome service is much more than a medical device. It is a one-way portal into a world where corporations have access to the innermost contents of your cells, and where insurers and pharmaceutical firms and marketers might know more about your body than you know yourself. And as 23andMe warns on its website, genetic information that you share with others could be used against your interests. You should be careful about sharing your genetic information with others. Present company exempted, of course. Yeah. So, there you go. There you go. Her spouse is Sergey Brin, co-founder of Google, and she heads 23andMe. And as far as I know, Google poured money into this venture, 23andMe, which I would say is a conflict of interest, personally. But hey, what do I know? All right, let's move along now. Now we're getting into something a little interesting, and this is the last post. So Q wants us to go and look out here. So let's go and take a looky. And we've covered this before, but we'll cover it again. It's in QTEL. And I'm going to, there's other places you can find out more about it than here. But let's go to the About page, shall we? Let's take a stroll across the in-QTEL landscape. Very slow indeed. What should we do while we're waiting? Could play checkers. Come on. Okay. Strategic investor, technology accelerator, trusted partner. I don't think so. IQT is the non-profit strategic investor that accelerates the development and delivery of cutting-edge technologies to U.S. government agencies that keep our nation safe. Our work bridges the gap between the challenging technology needs of the nation's security agencies, the rapidly changing innovations of the startup world, and the venture community that funds those startups. IQT occupies a distinct role at the intersection of all stakeholders: our government, customers, the venture capital community, and the startup world. Blah, 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 blah. Let's go hear somebody that's not trying to, load us up with a bunch of bull. Hang on. We got to go back here, and we're going to go here. All right. This is interesting. This isn't completely, this is, okay, well, it is in QTEL because in QTEL was named after Q in the James Bond films. I didn't know that. Okay, the Central Intelligence Agency has its own investment capital arm, and it's been pumping money into some of Silicon Valley's most innovative companies for years. And of course, we already know this. It has poured money into Google and Facebook and whatever. In-Q-Tel, named after Q in James Bond's films, invests in companies that can deliver useful technology to the intelligence community within 36 months. But since it's structured as an independent, non-profit organization, it's rather unique. Yes, it is. It's a VC firm that doesn't really need to make money back for outside investors, and it can tap into the deep pockets of the intelligence black budget. its involvement in a startup is also a stamp of approval of sorts, often bringing in more money from other venture capital firms to the tune of $11 to $15 for every dollar the CIA kicks in. In-Q-Tel typically does not disclose the amount it invests. Through a Washington Post story from 2005 says funding is often relatively small, $500,000 to $2 million investment. Yes, just chump change. Crumbs, as Nancy Pelosi would say. Just crumbs. Here are some of the cutting-edge companies that the CIA has found useful. Now, I thought that this would be interesting to take a look at. Here's what the CIA is investing in. Cylance is using artificial intelligence to analyze and kill malware well before it becomes a problem. Okay, I can see that that would be useful. Orbital Insight analyzes the millions of satellite images being beamed back to Earth to answer all kinds of interesting questions. Let's say you're a big retailer like Walmart or CVS, and you want to get an understanding of how many people are shopping at your stores. One method for figuring this out is to analyze the number of cars in the parking lot, which is one thing Orbital Insights can do. I can't see this being used for evil. The company can figure out things such as how certain stores are performing, how many people visit a store, or determine how busy it is at certain times of the day, and so forth, so on. Or it could just, hover over your house and see when you're coming and going, and who is entering your house and who is leaving, and how many cars are in your driveway, and what's in your backyard, and how many dogs you have, and how many times they poop in your backyard, and whether or not you pick it up. So the satellite analysis can answer other questions as well, like, tell us, what intersections are the busiest at rush hour? Or perhaps, how is China economy doing? What intersections are busiest at rush hour? Or who just ran a red light? Or, gee, we're looking for a blue car with this license plate. Let's check. Where is it? Oops. Hang on. So Orbital Insight has attracted plenty of interest beyond the CIA. Oh, I bet it has, which chipped in $5 million in 2016. Around the same time, Google Ventures led an investment round of $15 million. Sci-Fi built a tethered drone that can monitor an area for days at a time. Gee, I can't see what could possibly go wrong with that. Sci-Fi, pronounced sci-fi, so it's sci-fi, has a tethered drone that can keep a watchful eye from up to 10,000 feet above its base station, or it can help with long-distance communications. The company has patented microfilament tether to keep the drone connected to a ground control station where it gets all its power and communications from. So unlike the average drone, the ground-powered persistent aerial reconnaissance and communications can be launched and stay in the area for a much longer time. Well, that would make surveillance much easier, wouldn't it? Which is good if you're looking for a criminal, but what if we become criminals? What if it becomes criminal to have views that are against the mainstream views? What if that becomes criminal? You think it couldn't happen? Look what's happening now. If you don't go along with the acceptable narrative, you're kicked off of social media. Anyway, there's that. And then there's Blue Line Grid, made a communication platform similar to Slack with security and compliance in mind. What's this do? Offers messaging, image and file sharing, and instant conference calls for organizations. It's mostly used by law enforcement and first responders to communicate. That's a good thing. I think that's a good thing. Atlas Wearables created a fitness tracker that actually knows the specific exercise you're performing. Well, that's important for everybody to know, isn't it? But that's interesting because besides the band, it also has an app that can act as a personal trainer, which, just like the real thing, knows if you didn't do that last push-up. Well, that would be good. I'd buy one. Okay. And Fuel 3D can capture highly detailed three-dimensional imagery of rooms, objects, or people. Okay. It's a handheld hardware device called Scanify that can capture detailed three-dimensional scans in less than a tenth of a second. Yeah, I could see where that would be handy. Mind Meld is building voice recognition technology like Siri for everything. Okay, I'm getting bored. Snap DNA has a handheld device that can analyze DNA in minutes. Okay, Navy SEAL, oh, listen to this. Back in 2011, Navy SEALs killed Osama bin Laden. Really? Tell me another bedtime story. When the team headed back to Afghanistan, each helicopter brought back DNA samples of the terror leader so they could confirm they got him. Had they had the handheld device from Snap DNA, then later confirmation may not have been necessary. The Silicon Valley startup built a handheld battery-powered device that can analyze DNA within 5 minutes rather than hours or days on expensive machines in a laboratory. Okay, well, these are just some of the stuff. I'm not going to go through all this. It's out there. Holy mackerel, what happened to that man's hair? I'm sorry. I think I'm like too tired to be doing this. I really do. But I just... It reminds me of the dude that says, you know, it's aliens. Like, everything's aliens. I don't know his name, but anyway. I'm sure he's a perfectly lovely man. I just think his hair is a little bit out of control, man. Gel. Use some gel. Okay. I know what you're thinking. You're saying, like, please, move on. I will. Sometimes it's just important to amuse, yourself. Life's too short. In-Q-Tel, how CIA technology makes its way into consumer products. I'm not going to read all this, but this is another, the CIA is sponsoring tech companies through its venture capital arm, In-Q-Tel. Should we be concerned about its motives and possible backdoors? No, I don't think we need to be concerned, should we? And see, that's the problem about all those things that I just mentioned that they're developing, because that there's going to be backdoors there. They're going to find a way to use it in a not so good way. You look at these things and you think, hey, that's great. But, nowadays you have to look at it and say, okay, that's great. How can they use it against us? Sad that we have to think that way. Or maybe it's just me. We tend to unknowingly or neglectfully expose a lot of our personal data on the internet, and oftentimes it's not our fault. Social networks and digital applications marketed as a utility or source of entertainment can also be used for mining data and giving corporations incredible insight into our personal lives. That data is then analyzed and stored to develop a profile that decides the best way to target us with advertisements. That's not so surprising anymore. We've become keen on recognizing these marketing techniques and come to expect them. It becomes unsettling, however, when the CIA has a role in this game and seeds startups to develop technology to mine data for its clandestine agenda. This is also nothing new, but not many people are aware of the CIA's venture capital arm, In-Q-Tel, which has backed some of Silicon Valley's most prevalent advents, influencing widely used Google apps and possibly even Facebook. So what is In-Q-Tel, and should we be concerned? Well, yes, we should. And I think we know what In-Q-Tel is and what it's being used for. In early 2000s, the development of Google Earth made geospatial technology an exciting prospect in the tech world. Unsurprisingly, this technology was controversial and banned in some countries due to national security concerns and privacy issues. What is also unsurprising is that it was originally developed by a startup that was funded by In-Q-Tel called Keyhole Earth Viewer. The National Geospatial Intelligence Agency, or NGA, was cultivated out of this new technology as a parallel branch to the NSA that focuses on exploiting and analyzing geographical information and activity. In-Q-Tel's budget started off at $28 million in its first year and has been somewhat hazy ever since. After September 11th, 2001, the government's black budget for intelligence agencies increased dramatically, with the CIA now receiving about $14.7 billion. In-Q-Tel can access this money without having to fully disclose its spending. It also doesn't participate in requests for comments or interviews with the media. So, yeah. Who is In-Q-Tel? In-Q-Tel is headed by Gilman Louie, a former video game designer turned venture capitalist. Some have made note of Louie's connections with board members of the venture capital firms that gave Facebook the funding to become the social media juggernaut it is today. One connection is with James Breyer, a partner and board member of the Accel, the company that invested $12.7 million in Facebook's Series A funding. Louie and Breyer sat together on the board of military defense contractor BBN, known for essentially helping to create email and the internet. Facebook's second round of funding came from a company called Greylock Venture Capital, headed by Howard Cox, who also sat in In-Q-Tel's board. Another interesting connection has been made with Louie in his role with Niantic, the mobile gaming company that created Pokemon Go. Louie was added to the board of the company for his strategic insight in both gaming and venture capital investment. The augmented reality technology for Pokemon Go was a product of Keyhole Inc., the In-Q-Tel funded startup that became Google Earth. Users of the game are required to allow the program to access personal data ranging from geolocation services to camera access, and it even has the capability to remotely read, modify, or delete files on the user's phone. The program can track where users are, where they've been, what they look like, and a multitude of personal information that could be used to create profiles and spy on individuals, which begs the question, is this a beta test for a larger CIA-sponsored program? Of course it is. Of course it is. So I'm not going to go through all this, but that gives us an overview. So, alrighty. Well, that is it for the Q posts. I'm not exactly sure yet why Q has brought this up. It has been brought up in the past. This is the second time it's been brought up, so I would imagine that there is something coming that this connects to. Yeah, that's what I think anyway. I mean, okay, this Anon was talking about iris scanners and pricking their finger for blood, to confirm their ID and stuff, which I don't think that they would do that. But personally, I think that there's going to be, far more, that's a little messy. And of course he brought up this, but it'd be interesting. Maybe In-Q-Tel is the venture capital for 23andMe. I don't know. I didn't think about that. Maybe I should look into that. Wouldn't surprise me. Anyway, that is the drops for today. And I did check before I posted to make sure that I was up to date, and I am. At least I was as of the time I began this. And if there are more posts, I may bring them to you tonight. I mean, Q only has another hour to post. If they're there, I might bring it to you tonight. If not, I'll wait till tomorrow and see what tomorrow brings in the world of Q. And I'll talk to you guys later. I hope you have a wonderful evening. Stay safe. Rest well.